Jeremy, good to have you here.
Great to be here.
So one of the things I'm really curious about with Yelp is what the expansion model looks like. Are you trying to move out geographically? Are you trying to get different types of businesses? What's next?
Yeah, so as it turns out, the way that we've always grown has been city by city. And it's been this geographic expansion, that really got started in 2005, San Francisco. Started to go there and then went to the other major cities like New York, and Seattle, Boston, et cetera. And now we finally, in the last several years, started expanding internationally. And so we have a real presence now. We, in fact, have an office in London and Dublin and Hamburg. And it's really been incredible to see Yelp in so many different languages. We've launched Japan this year. And so it's a very exciting time to see the site really go and blossom internationally.
When you're using Yelp, do you have a sort of threshold of a rating where you say, like, this place is going to be great versus one where you say, okay, versus I'm definitely not going there? I mean, I assume if you have 0 stars or whatever, you're not going, but is it 1.5, 2, where you go, I'm not doing that? What's your personal, how do you use it?
Okay, so we're looking for pro tips on how to use Yelp. I would say, the outliers are always interesting. It's pretty difficult to be, 1 or 1.5 star business. And similarly, it's difficult to be a 4.5 star business with, say, hundreds or even thousands of reviews. And so when you do discover one of those, chances are you're going to have an incredible experience. And in fact, there was just a Nate Silver publication, a blog post that he did, where he analyzed Yelp reviews and compared it to expert reviews by Michelin. And he found in New York, there's very strong correlation between the outliers on Yelp and the ones that also were outliers with professional ratings.
And so in terms of the rating system and how all that works, I don't think I got an answer. Where do you say I'm not going? At what level?
At times convenience takes over and you just go anyways. And if it's 3 stars, you're like, I know I'm going to have a mediocre experience, but I'm going to survive. And so I'm not afraid of a 3-star restaurant, but I would say 3.5 is the threshold for like acceptable. 3, you're going to have a mediocre experience. You're not going to be that happy with it, I think.
You mentioned Nate Silver. Sports fans know him. Political junkies know him.
Presumably know him as well.
You've got a really interesting data set in terms of the reviews. People have actually been to a place. It's not so much perception like political polling would be. Who are you sharing that data with? I mean, I understand you guys are starting to share that data. How is it used? Who are you sharing it with?
It's really gotten a lot of pickup. We do have an academic data set, and we've given that over to the community that's focused on data mining techniques and machine learning and all of that. And they've done really interesting projects with it. A lot of them get submitted. We actually run ongoing contests for fellowships with university students, which is pretty cool. But then also on the public health side, there's been some interesting research and traction where certain cities, researchers in certain cities have picked up the data, analyzed it, looking for patterns of suspicious reports around things like, I felt sick, or I was throwing up after I went to this restaurant. Just things that suggest maybe there's some health code issues going on at that business. And in fact, they've used that information to then drive investigations. So if you have limited resources of investigators that can go out and do health inspections at restaurants, one useful way to allocate it might be to look for reports of that and then go after them. And that's actually been happening and has had really positive results as well.
And so are they able to search words like got sick or?
Exactly, yeah. So they created a list of words associated with potential health code violations, like a cockroach crawled across my table perhaps, or I was sick, et cetera. And then they used that then to drive investigations and inspections, and they actually found that it was a helpful way to allocate their limited resources.
You've been part of 2 pretty successful electronic firms, PayPal and obviously Yelp. What's your recommendation for folks who are young, looking to get into that line of work? What's the best way to find the right idea or come up with the right idea?
It's tough. For me, the way I found my way into this industry was I started interviewing, and I was very fortunate, and I just met Elon Musk. I went and I interviewed at X.com, a little tiny startup of maybe less than 30 people. and talked to a couple engineers. They were very talented. I was impressed. And then I finally ran into the CEO of the firm, Elon. And the guy was just crazy. He was 28 years old. He was already on his second company. He had this twinkle in his eye. And he confidently told me, and at the time we had no revenue, it was no revenue company, very, very early, maybe less than 100,000 users. And he said, with a straight face, we're going to take down Visa and MasterCard. Like, we're going to replace world payments with this service. And I had never seen anything like that. I didn't even understand the power that a single person, with great ambitions, the impact that they could have, the influence that they could have. And so for me, that was kind of an aha moment about Silicon Valley and what even a young person could potentially do in their career. And I saw that, there was that moment, and I was like, I have to sign up. I have to be a part of this. And so it was a leap of faith. The company just had a little bit of traction, but I really wanted to just learn from this person. And then Elon became, a long-term mentor, and the company later merged with PayPal, or Confinity as it was called back then, and led to all sorts of wonderful things after.
So is there a Stoppelman mafia of people that you've played the same role for as Elon Musk played for you? Who should we be looking at as innovators of the future?
There's, much like I'm sure DC, Silicon Valley is a very small place when it comes down to it. And so I am friendly with lots of young entrepreneurs, and I've invested in lots of companies you've probably heard of that are up-and-comers or now quite successful. And so there is this nice system of giving back. If you do get some traction, achieve success, people come to you and look for advice, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the time that I spend sitting down with new entrepreneurs, giving them guidance. There's all sorts of gotchas that you can help them steer clear of, and so I find that to be a rewarding part of being a CEO that's built a company and now has the opportunity to give back to the community.
Depending on the issue, sometimes you find yourself an ally of Google, and sometimes you find yourself on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm curious.
Frenemy? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm curious about with regard to Google is obviously your business relies on using them as a platform, using search engines as a platform. What's wrong with them promoting their own products, promoting their own reviews over yours?
Yeah, that's the key question. Is there consumer harm? Because we all use Google products. A lot of them are free. That's wonderful. Search is free. But think about a moment where you're looking for a resource. Maybe, you have a young child who's got the flu and you want a pediatrician. And you search for pediatrician on your Android phone, and it pops up a few results from Google+. Turns out not that many people use Google+, and they don't have that many reviews. And so you're not actually getting the best information on something that's actually really important to you. And so this idea that Google preferences its content, when we're talking about restaurants, it may not be as important. It's not a life or death. Maybe, you have an unfortunate restaurant experience, but you'll live. But
Hopefully.
There's actually things that people turn to Yelp for that are more critical. And if you can't find that information, if it's essentially cut off, that's a real problem, I think, for consumers as well as business owners that are shortchanged. The ones that are really doing a great job, or that doctor that takes extra time with your child, you're deprived of that experience. And I think, that's a pretty serious problem.
But on the one hand, the tech industry, and I'll broaden it from just your company, on the one hand, the tech industry says, don't regulate us, don't tax us. But at the same time, in this situation, you say, wait a second, you ought to be regulating what Google can do in terms of its ability to promote its own products over ours, or there's a consumer harm. Is there a tension in that, and how do you resolve that?
I don't think so. I mean, if you just go back, what is it now, 15, 20 years to the Microsoft case, I mean, all of Silicon Valley, in fact, Eric Schmidt himself was running around Washington. The rumor is he had to register as a lobbyist at one point, but he was at Novell and lobbying against Microsoft and its monopoly. So I don't think the idea that you have a dominant market position and therefore other companies express concerns about how you're abusing that power is anything new to Washington or Silicon Valley.
And then let me ask you, just as far as Yelp goes, what are the services you want to get into?
So we talked about geographic expansion, but the other area that I think is really exciting is thinking about Yelp not just as a way to decide which local business you're going to patronize or which service, but actually being able to transact and make that action happen. So, for example, if I'm hungry and I want to order food and have it show up at my door, right now, the obvious way to do that would be go to Yelp, look up, pizza place, give them a call. Maybe they mishear my order. It's very frustrating. And so what we've done is allowed businesses, other third parties, to plug in to Yelp. We have a whole API, application programming interface, way for all sorts of businesses to plug in. And as a result, we now have 28,000 local businesses that can receive online orders, or if you're trying to go to a hair salon, you can book your appointment. And so this idea of taking online users and allowing them to transact and then show up offline seamlessly is, I think, really powerful. It reminds me a little bit of what Amazon has done in e-commerce. We have this very horizontal shopping experience. You can find just about anything. And in fact, so many of the products, if not the majority of the products on Amazon, aren't even supplied by Amazon. Amazon's just acting as this platform and allows all these vendors to plug in. And I think that's a really powerful idea in the local landscape where you can always turn to Yelp and then seamlessly transact.
And click a button.
Click a button. Your credit card is saved, your information, phone number, address is just a couple clicks, and then you've booked your appointment, you've made your restaurant reservation, or you've ordered your food.
How do you expand that? So you said 28,000 businesses. How do you get from 28,000 to 500,000 or whatever it is around the world? How are you doing that? How do you recruit people to sign up with you?
Yeah, so there's all these third parties. One of the ones we work with, for example, is called E24, which is one of the food delivery partners that we have. And so their whole business is just signing up, restaurants that want to have online food ordering. And so they're growing naturally. We don't have to worry about that. They're handling that part. And we're also signing up other different companies just like E24 or in other categories as well. And so that naturally grows through the partnerships that we're bringing in. And I think we're just at the beginning of that connection of these local businesses to the online audience. And so over time, this is just going to get bigger and bigger simply by adoption. I mean, this is a new idea, being able to seamlessly transact with local businesses. And so we're just getting started.
So if you guys want a pizza, head over to Yelp, click
Absolutely.
on it. You can have it sent to the hall here. Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.